Jinxes can't last forever, can they? Let's find out. This is the Arsenal Vision pre-match live stream. My name is Alex Smith. Block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner, off to a flying start, which I assure you is a good sign, because the worse the live stream is, the better the game is going to be. I think it is fair to say at this point that we have proven ourselves to be a jinx. I don't think we ever win when we do a live stream, but don't blame us. We haven't kicked a ball. I mean, you know, that's at least the way I look at it. Look, Paz is here. Scott is here. Of course, Jessica Black is here. We're going to bring all of them in. We're going to take your questions. We are going to try to find something to talk about, because it's been a very calm, slow news week at Arsenal. I kid. Are we going to talk no Aubameyang? Or are we going to talk Obamagon? Which do we like? We'll decide on that too. We will get to that. We'll get to the lineup. I think there's some interesting choices to be made. But this is a big game. In the context of the season, where we are in the table and what we want to achieve and can still achieve, it is a big game, and also a big game, I think, in the context of a manager that has really made a firm decision and needs the players to show that they are behind him 100% with their performance today. So here to discuss that with me is, of course, Jessica Black. You can find her on Twitter. It's Jessino. Hello, Jess.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, I mean, it's going great. It's going great. We are going to talk Obamagon, no Aubameyang. Which do you prefer, no Aubameyang or Obamagon?
I think I like Aubameyang.
Let's get it up on the screen. Get your votes in.
Are we allowed to joke about these types of things? I think at this point,
if you can't laugh, you're left to cry. And I only cry on camera a few times a year. Here with me now is Scott. You can find him on Twitter. _that_. Hello, Scott.
Yeah.
Obamagon or no Aubameyang?
I mean, no Aubameyang. Yeah,
no
I think I like that one.
No Aubameyang?
Yeah.
Let's see. We got to vote for Obamagon. Obamagon.
I'm fine either way.
We're not doing politics here. No Aubameyang. Oba starts. First team news of the night. Now that would be pretty funny if they were pranking us like the whole time, just to see
some real mind games with the David Moyes, right?
Yeah, there's that. It's
I like Aubameyang.
Aubameyang. Okay, yeah. The Whoville thing. You know the Whoville story from The Grinch. So that's kind of. Oh wait, we got one here. They're coming up too fast. Aubameyang. I don't know, man. I don't know. Obama late. I mean, look. That doesn't work. It doesn't work. Obamagon, we got to vote for Obamagon. We'll get Paz in here because he will settle the argument. Paul's on Twitter. Paz my pants. Oh, Paz!
Why not vote no Obamagon?
Are you talking to us from your Sony Walkman in 1987?
Well, possibly. Actually, maybe I've got an audio setting.
That was Paz. You can find him on Twitter. Paz in my pants. We'll bring him back in like a couple seconds. Paz, just hop into the private chat and let me know when you think your setting is correct. Let's get right into it, though. We're going to take your questions. We're going to do predictions. We're going to think about the lineup and all that. It is Arsenal, West Ham. It is a big, big game. And Jess, I will start with you. Let's just dive right into it and read this together on who the next captain could be. Well, we have the leadership group, and we have different players who have been nominated to be captain. In the last game, it was Laka. We had Granite, who had been captain as well, so we will follow that. It is a really unpleasant situation, not the moment to any rash decision. That leadership group is really strong. It is the one that communicates with myself and the coaching staff, with the club, and really strong, blah, 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 blah. What do you think?
Yeah, I think just the main point there was talking about the leadership group. And I think as an Arsenal fan base, maybe we're eager to move on from this leadership group, not only from a leadership standpoint, but from a playing standpoint. But I think if Granit Xhaka walked out with the armband today, I don't think we'd be surprised by that. And so it'll be interesting to see how Arteta manages this part of it. But yeah, I mean, what do you kind of think about that as well? Like, would you be devastated if you saw Granit? I mean, he's somebody that's had his own issues over the years, but it hasn't really been lateness or anything like that. It was slamming the armband down and getting red cards. Is that equivalent to what Aubameyang's been doing, or is it different in some way?
I don't know. I can't hear you over the size of my head swelling. Thank you, Love Ramey. I mean, anybody who wants to just compliment me and pick up my generally low self-esteem, I'm always here for it. Let's do this. Let's get this off the screen. Let's get Paz back on his 1987 Walkman. Hello, Paz.
No Obamagon.
No Obamagon?
Yeah.
No Obamagon. We're sticking with one or the other. Obamagon or no Aubameyang? No Obamagon, I guess could, well, you know what?
I'll go with no Aubameyang.
No Aubameyang? Okay, let's do this. Let's get some comments in, and as we do get the comments, I'm going to give Scott, Scott.
Yes.
Let's have a chat. Just you and me for a second. Do you like people liking you or being popular or generally being considered a nice guy, a good dude, people that want to engage with you?
I mean, that is, a nice thing to have happen. But, I also, wouldn't sugarcoat my thoughts and opinions.
I'm going to just go ahead and call this section Scott Torches His Mentions. This section is called Scott Torches His Mentions, and feel free to get your comments in and yell at him, but Scott is going to get his solo moment to tell you his unpopular opinions on the Aubameyang situation. Now, the cool thing is I agree with most of them, but I will not say that publicly. I will tell him that he is crazy to hold these opinions and that I disagree with him, even though he is speaking exactly what I believe, but I will never confess that. So, Scott, what do you think of how the Aubameyang situation has been handled?
All right, so I've got a few thoughts on this. And so I've been studying up on Stephen A. Smith. I've been, seeing how Colin Cowherd handles these things because I wanted to be able to come hot with my thoughts. The number one thing is that I think that this is becoming an even bigger self-inflicted crisis for the club. I think this is something that probably could have been a 1 week story that, when you start getting into the fixtures coming fast and stuff like that, this probably could have been a relatively minor blip. Not too dissimilar to the one that happened after the North London Derby. That one really kind of blew over pretty quick, where those things happened. But I think once we really kind of got into stripping of the captaincy, all of the leaks that kind of came out from the club, this became something that the club is now mired in. This is something that's going to fester with the team for a long time. And this is just something that is probably going to become an unfortunate story probably through maybe the end of January. So I think that this is something that's going to be just a huge pain. And then I start looking at the history of Arteta and how he's been able to deal with players. And I think that there's some of this that I think that he might be the common thread in all of this. He seems to always have a player that he's constantly feuding with, and that makes me come in and question, is he a person that's a problem and not necessarily something that is inherent with Aubameyang? And, I think Aubameyang has had issues, and I think there's certainly an issue where he deserves some punishment for this, but I can definitely see his side of the story with the one that we're talking about here. I think there's some general confusion about what he thought that he was supposed to be doing and that he was thinking that he was able to follow some of the rules, but the club have come down draconian style on him with a lot of the issues that they're going out with this now. I think that it's incredibly unfair with the amount of kind of the one-sided story of what's been going on. You look at the stuff that's come through, I think that there's been a lot of kind of anonymous sourcing with the club briefing teams, briefing a lot of the journalists and everything there, where it's been just here to say that it's what the club wants to be able to see. I think I look at this and I have to question, is Arteta a special manager that we are going to give this kind of leeway? I know one of the things that's kind of just a sad reality of the modern game is that players are on longer, more guaranteed, bigger contracts. So there isn't a lot of times where the manager is able to really have the final say on things. There's not those kinds of things. And then the last thing that I really kind of want to touch on is I feel that there's almost a hypocrisy of the non-negotiables. So I know a lot of the things that they talk about when the non-negotiables is respect. And I feel like a lot of the way that this kind of has come out, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of respect with the amount of leaks, the amount of times where players have been able to kind of dealt with the substitutions, where it feels like it's been sending a message to people above. Is that respectful, doing these kinds of things? So I feel that there's been a lot of issues. I feel that how this has been handled is not good for the club overall. It's going to hurt the team for how our chances are to finish into the top 6 or even the top 4. So yeah, I think that there is a lot of questions that I have about this, and I don't like the way that it has come out.
Yeah, fair enough, Scott. I would say that you have effectively torched your mentions.
That's okay.
So I want to congratulate you. That was the segment. That's what we call it. Here's what I want to say in response. I do think that there are times when you look at a situation and you say, it's happening enough at Arsenal right now that it's odd. right? That it feels like these situations of club going up against their players in a public way, freezing them out, maybe chasing them out, maybe them paying them to leave. Those are things you ideally don't see happen at a club ever. We're seeing it happen a few times under this management group. I think it can also be the case that Aubameyang was given some leniency, was granted some room within the rule structure to exist in his own sort of place as one of the more senior players, as a star, as a highest paid player, and still couldn't stay within the lines there. There was a recent quote from Arteta about how he was impressed with Aubameyang, saying, you know, he's finally realized that there's more to it than just what he does on the pitch. He's stepping up to that leadership role. And it sounded like Arteta was not just saying, I love the guy. It sounded like what he's saying is, I think he's getting it. I think he's starting to see his responsibility. And so it must really frustrate Arteta to feel like he's fallen outside of the rules again. The hard thing for us, Scott, as fans is we don't know how many rules he's violated. We don't know how persistent the problem has been. Oh boy, there's coffee all over the MacBook. That's good. We'll clean that up, you know, some point, probably right after the stream dies. None of that is known. And ultimately, what you can't afford to do is lose the group trying to tolerate the player. We just don't know. We don't know if the players support the move Arteta has made or hate it. We don't know if the player probably warranted this earlier and was granted more leniency and eventually it could no longer be delayed. So these are all things we don't know and make it hard to reach a conclusion. I can definitely see the perspective of people who say it feels like he's too often public with his discipline, or it feels like he's too often at odds with his players. But I absolutely see the perspective of your highest paid player and captain should be the role model. Now, that is not always the case at most clubs, unfortunately, should be. And also that we don't know just how many breaches there have been. So there's a lot of complexity here. I want to move beyond it to a certain extent to get to what's going to happen today. It sounds like we're going to go unchanged. I'll bring Paul back in. I'll bring Jess back in. There's the issue, of course, of what we're going to do with the captaincy. It sounds like it's Lacazette today. Paul, I'm going to let you tee off on the lineup issue for a minute, because it does sound like we're going to go unchanged. And that, to me, I think maybe over-indexes the success against Southampton and underplays the struggles against Everton with this lineup. And I do sort of think that Emil Smith-Rowe is a player we really need on the pitch. Now, we don't know what his fitness level is. So I'll let you start with this. I'm going to pull myself out of the stream for a minute so I can clean up the coffee that is now destroying my MacBook. Why don't you guys have a chat without me, which means it'll be the best pre-match live stream ever. But what do you think specifically if we are staying unchanged today, and whether you think maybe that's over-indexing the success against Southampton?
Well, it's maybe not over-indexing the success of the second half against Southampton, where we hit our groove, maybe with a little help from Southampton backing off a little bit. But hey, we'll take it. It was a performance to build on. It had a lot of this, well, so some of the key players that played against West Ham last year in the 3-3 with the Odegaard, the Lacazette on the pitch, the Saka, but a much more robust back line, in fact, to what we played against West Ham last year. So I think it looks pretty promising as a setup. It was the lineup I predicted, though I had a debate between Smith-Rowe and Martinelli, but you got to say, Arteta's been fairly consistent on giving the young guys a run of games when they've shown something, as he did with Nuno. Yeah.
So Paul, I was going to say, I mean, I guess the one question that I have is, what do you feel about with Xhaka starting his third game in, you know, like, what is it, 7 days or 8 days or something like that after, you know, the long layoff? I guess that was my one question, if that one would change. I guess, what do you feel about that one?
I was certain Xhaka would play, especially against West Ham. They have a very, very sturdy midfield, physical. I don't mean unskilled. I just mean there's some big lads there. They boss their midfield. They control the game up the sides there with Rice, with Souček. I just didn't see us doing Partey plus Sambi Lokonga to see how good positionally disciplined Sambi might be, especially because they come down the wings and because we go up the wing with Tierney. That whole area behind Tierney, you know, the Tierney-Xhaka understanding, hopefully, is going to be critical against Moyes. He's always used the wings. He's always He's one of the highest crosses into the box guys, always has been. He'll use height. He'll use late arriving midfielders. There's too much. Xhaka, for all his defensive flaws, is pretty good at watching when he needs to step into the back line or track a midfield runner. He's not perfect, but he's good. He's solid. He's responsible. He'll follow the plan, and he knows the plan. Sambi's still learning it. So I was pretty sure about Xhaka plus Tierney, because Tierney is going to bomb forward and he'll be part of our attack. And Moyes is going to look to target that. So you need somebody who really understands that. So for me, the only question was Smith Rowe and Martinelli, and some consistency there. He's bet on Martinelli or said, "You did good, boy." And I think, especially after about 20, 30 minutes in the Southampton game, Martinelli really shone. In fact, he barely touched the ball to begin with. But then he started appearing on the ball in midfield and driving forward or spraying the ball out to the right wing and connecting things. And you want more of that. And it works well with Lacazette as well, Martinelli. Maybe even more than Smith Rowe in some ways, because he'll make that run in behind, as opposed to Smith Rowe maybe arriving with the play, which is where Lacazette tends to, into the box for that. How many guys do you need sitting there waiting to tuck that ball in? Hopefully loads, and hopefully there's loads of those balls. But you also need Martinelli making that run in behind. So it makes some sense to me.
Look, I'm not trying to be a jerk. I haven't been listening to a word you said, Paul, but I couldn't disagree more.
Oh, it was good stuff. It was good stuff.
Has anyone else gotten a chance yet? I'm back. I'm ready to moderate.
No, nobody else.
Oh, nobody else.
I said a few words.
Scott was asking me questions.
Scott, nobody wants to hear from you anymore after you're torching your mentioned segment. Jess, get in here and talk some sense, would you? We need to bail this out. What do you think of the Unchanged Lineup? And is that confirmed, by the way? If anyone's wondering where I've been, I spilled coffee all over my MacBook.
Your loins.
Have I learned?
On your loins.
Haven't learned. I've still got the huge cup of coffee, and I'm shakily carrying it across the MacBook. Do we have confirmation on the lineup?
Yeah, it's confirmed by
it
Chris
is confirmed.
Wheatley. That's cool.
Okay, that was a jerk comment.
And our squad,
from who, Terrence? From me? All I'm saying is I haven't listened to Paul, but I couldn't disagree more strenuously. Unchanged lineup confirmed. Come on, everybody. Oh, lineup is on Twitter. All right, if it's unchanged, you know what the nice thing about it being unchanged is? I've already got that lineup typed in here. So I don't have to. Do we know if Smith Rowe is out with injury or on the bench? Or what
He's on the bench.
Yeah, he's on the
bench.
Okay, ESR on the bench. All right, Jess, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily feel like against Everton, the selection in terms of what we were trying to do is wrong. I just think Xhaka coming back off of injury, Thomas Partey not playing particularly well, and us just crumbling under the pressure was more the issue than the actual players that were out there. So for me, like when I watched the Southampton game, I thought we were really shaky at the beginning, but once it started clicking beyond some, misplaced passes by this person or that person, I felt like it was the right lineup. We had a good balance up top with Saka and Martinelli, and Lacazette did what he's supposed to do. Thomas Partey was a lot better in between the lines, which I think is going to be important in this game. So I think it's the right lineup, but it will look like the wrong lineup, obviously, if we don't win the game or they don't play well. But I don't really see any players that are not included at the moment that I think are obvious choices that should be in there. I don't think Tavares is an obvious, should be in there. I don't think, Sambi is an obvious option because it's Souček and Rice. That's a very big boy midfield that's going to require our bigger guns. And whether you like Granit Xhaka or not, I think he's a better option, even maybe not at full fitness. So it's going to be an interesting game. I think the only real maybe difference that people have is Smith Rowe. And the only reason why I feel like he might have been a good option to come in is because if they do decide to sit on Thomas Partey or Thomas Partey doesn't have a good game, we will have one less midfielder. And Smith Rowe does give you that midfield option because he drops deep, whereas Martinelli's not really going to be doing that. So, but that's an option you can bring off of the bench. But to me, this is the right lineup to go with. And I personally don't agree. I don't think that the Southampton game was like we played worse than what the score showed. I just think that we were a little bit shaky at the beginning and we got it together. So I like this lineup. This is what I wanted to see.
You're going to love this take, Jess. I disagree. I think the first half we played really poorly against Southampton in one respect. So Clive and I did a rewatch. They pressed. We gave the ball away. We just gave it away a lot. Now, our intention to play was there. We were trying to play in behind. The players were making runs. There was an effort to get in behind the press. We've just seen time and time and time again that this team has a sloppiness issue, has an execution issue, Scott. And I know that everybody wants everything to be a referendum on Mikel Arteta, but there is a point at which the players have to go out and perform. One of the stats you posted that's just really shocking to me, I think it's like 600 minutes starting at striker. Lacazette has 2 shots.
I mean, that's all start. So I mean, it's also
all
him.
start,
He's playing. It's also when he's playing that 10-ish kind of thing.
So that's a little unfair, right? Because that role is less of a get in the box and shoot. But I think, Scott, the thing that concerns me with this lineup is we saw it play Everton and really, really struggle to create any real threat. That first half was I know we ended the half with a 1-0 lead, but it was our first real shot of the game other than Partey trying to take out satellites. And then we saw the Southampton game where we really struggled to play out and execute and pass to each other. And I do think in both of those games, what we really, really missed was Emil Smith-Rowe, because I think having that box in midfield, that extra man to drop in and link play becomes really important for us to play out. Now, the downside is I don't think Martinelli deserves to be dropped. I think he's been brilliant. The big call, the scary call would be to drop Lacazette for Martinelli, but we're probably not there yet. So how do you balance those equities?
So this is something that I've been kind of, I guess, slandering Lacazette, and that is maybe a little bit unfair on some of the things that I've been doing. Because I did go back and look, and yes, when Arsenal start with Lacazette, our shots are slightly down. I think it's about 12-ish when he has started versus 15 when he hasn't started. But one of the things that's actually interesting is that Arsenal's XG is better when he starts versus when he doesn't start. It's roughly, so it's 1.4 to 1.2. So even though our shots are slightly down, maybe we're taking a few more better shots. So maybe there is some truth to him, helping to help us get into better spots. I still not fully, it's still a very small sample size. So they're roughly the same in both regards. So I'm not sure if I'm over indexing on some of these things. I still worry about him as the main focal point, just because it really does seem like he runs out of gas at that 55, 60 minutes. And I think there were certain situations last game where he was able to get into promising spots and he either couldn't pull the trigger to get a shot, or he really just kind of ran out of steam where he couldn't make a pass to, kind of do that. Cause that seems like his general first impression was to do that. So yeah, I don't know if it's a popular thing to be able to do, because that's the thing that's also kind of frustrating with the Aubameyang thing, is that I don't think we have a great choice for striker right now. Because I think Aubameyang had pretty well played himself into making, needing a break as striker. So I think that part was generally fair to drop him and give him a break. But also, I don't think there was lots of great choices to fill in that spot. And I think that is just becoming an even bigger issue for the team to be able to have to deal with.
Let's get Paul back in here as he ducks in and out to do more important things in the background. Paul, I think there is a question about midfield for me too. Like, I've now seen 2 games with Xhaka back, and I've rewatched both of them. So I'm on the level with you. I got to rewatch one with Clive, which means I actually understood what I saw. In the first game, Xhaka did the thing he's most comfortable with against Everton, dropping into that left defensive half space, seeing the whole game in front of him, lots of room to distribute up the pitch, but is very safe and very easy to stop. In the second game against Southampton, he was more in central midfield, but did have a lot of sloppy giveaways, and they targeted him. He's been out a while. He's going to be a bit rusty. There are things, at this point, Xhaka's Xhaka, right? We know what he does. We know what he doesn't do. I think Sambi Lokonga adds a different dimension if we want to have him in midfield, in that you can't just target him or target Partey. They both have that elusiveness and ability to get around a little pressure and progress the ball. So are you somewhat surprised that, look, we shouldn't be surprised that Xhaka just plays every game he's available, but like, he's back from injury. It's now 3 games in a little over a week that he's starting. I don't know why we feel so tied to him. I get that there's seniority and leadership there, but I think it's really harsh on Lokonga, frankly, just from watching the last couple of games.
So I think if you just look at it footballistically, tactically, I think Arteta still goes with Xhaka for the following reasons. We're going to need defensive positional awareness, responsibility from Xhaka. Tierney's going to bomb forward. Somebody's going to have to cover him, know when to. Their midfielders, Souček, etc., attack our box, arrive late. Xhaka's actually pretty good at covering that, dropping into the back line and covering midfielders. So we're going to need it on that side. I think in the Southampton game, Xhaka was a mixed bag in that he definitely had, especially in the first half, a number of notable giveaways, which were not helpful. On the other hand, I think he did some good things as well, progressing us forward. As you may have spotted, a few good interceptions, tackles, covering of their players as they bombed forward, and some good passing too. So he was a bit of a mixed bag for me. I liked him more in the Everton game till about 50, 60 minutes. I thought he was cleaner. But yeah, if he's pressed, he's more vulnerable than Lokonga is on the ball. But I think he gives us a lot of other things in terms of him and Partey's understanding. They just look right to me. Partey and Xhaka are a very solid combination in midfield. And with Odegaard dropping in to make up the three and finding good spots and spaces, I think we'll get forward. I want to see more of it. I think it's our strongest midfield at the moment, and Sambi still has a little bit of a ways to go, even though I think he's a star in the making, and he's pretty close to a star now, but he's still learning where to stand next to Partey and how to provide a platform, and he's not much of a screen in front of our back line. And West Ham are a very dangerous side. They'll come down the sides, put in crosses. Rice is dribbling up the middle these days. Souček will arrive late, and somebody needs to mark him. There'll be a lot going on with West Ham, and a lot of tactical games between him and Moyes, and it could be quite end to end.
Well, dude, let's remember what happened last season, Jess. I mean, I think we were 3-0 down by 20 minutes and then probably played some of our best attacking football ever under Arteta, ironically. I think... Oh, wait. Got a question. Wait. Important question. It says, block me on Twitter at Yankee Gunner, and it says, that's why my friends call me Whiskers. And if you look closely, you'll see it is covered in the stains of coffee that were previously spilled all over my MacBook. Jess, yeah, an interesting game last season. I wonder how much that will be playing on our minds. But like, someone made the comment that Sambi Lokonga is an understudy at this point in his career. That's where he is. And I kind of get that. But I also think if you look at this team, Smith Rowe is young, but he's starting because he deserves it. Saka is young, but he's starting because he deserves it. Odegaard was out of the team. He came in, he played well. I think he's earned his place. He's back in the team. If you're just saying to me, did Sambi Lokonga do enough to keep his place? In my view, he did. Now, my view, I don't know if you know this, but it doesn't actually count for anything, but it's just what I think. So I'm curious, do you think solidity is something that Arteta may have had in mind given the way this game played out last season with us going down so big so early?
I just think that in the end of the day, and this is probably going to just sound like, oh, why can't you engage, Jess? But Edu said it. He said it. He said that when they made their decisions over the summer, that they decided that Granit Xhaka and Thomas Partey were the starters and Sambi was going to be the backup, and that's pretty much what's going on, so I don't know if it's solidity. I don't think so. I think last season, this is the midfield that we played with that was good after we were bad. So when I look at it, I think, yeah, we do want Sambi to get the playing time. And when you're right, like if you're good enough, then you should be starting. But I tend to feel like the center of midfield, especially in that pivot, is a little bit more touchy. It's touchier than playing in those forward positions, or even in Tavares's case as left back. Like if you make mistakes there, it's really detrimental to the game. So I think we'll long it out with Xhaka a little bit more than we've seen in those other positions that are a little bit less, I guess, high risk. Because we've seen that when Sambi has made mistakes, they're not like when Emile Smith-Rowe loses the ball at the halfway line. They're literally down our throat and taking really good shots at our goal. So, and I know that Xhaka does it too, but we also have to remember that Sambi's, he may not recover the same if he makes those mistakes. So
I will say that Xhaka made those exact kind of mistakes against Southampton. I'm not trying to pick on him. I just think that's something to bear in mind. Yeah.
But I also think that we have to, do you think that was Xhaka just normal, or was he didn't have the fitness For me,
I
it
don't
looked
think it's a
like he
fitness
didn't
thing.
have the
I really
fitness.
think it's a positioning thing, Jess. I think when he plays deeper, he's comfortable. He can see the whole pitch. He can distribute long and up the wings, which he really likes to do. When he's in crowd scenes, we see bad Shaka. I think where bad Shaka comes out is in crowd scenes. And so, I think if you're going to put him in midfield along with Party and have him in those closer clusters where he has to make the shorter passes, the quicker decisions, I do think that that's where we see maybe a little of the less effective Shaka. So, I think that's a point. Can we talk about the Smith now, please? I think we have to talk about the Smith for sure. I want to pop this up on the screen and I'll get Scott back in here for a second. Let's bring in the West Ham lineup just for a second though, Scott, because tell me if you can spot the person that scares me to death.
Antonio.
I wonder if you're worried about Antonio. I'm kind of worried about
I'm
Jared
pretty
Bowen.
worried about Screw Jared Bowen. Mikel Antonio gives me those. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the days when Costa would body Koscielny or Drogba would, embarrass whoever. Who were some of the players that he was embarrassing back in the day and bullying? I guess Vermaelen would have been one maybe, but I just get that fear of set pieces here, but also just the physical side of it. This is a big Gabriel game, right? I think you got to bracket him. You need Ben White coming in front of him and Gabriel, I was about to say the opposite of that. I'm not going to, standing behind him, defending him. You know what I wanted to ask you though, Scott? I think about the Pablo Marie Rob Holding game against Chelsea and what happened with Lukaku. We get a really good chance to see how better defenders make better things. I'm not saying Antonio and Lukaku are the same player, but I think they pose some of the same kind of challenges. So do you think it's an interesting chance to see how, hey, actually having the good defenders might make a big difference?
Yeah, I think that will be interesting because, you definitely looked at Chelsea looking to find spaces to move our back line. Really kind of pulled him out to kind of the top of the D and really make our center backs come out to it. I think that's something that Gabriel is a lot more comfortable doing, those kinds of things. He definitely likes to follow players out there, and he's kind of a more aggressive in the trying to stop the ball coming into that spot instead of being a little bit more reactive. And I think that'll be really interesting to see if we can cut off some of those lanes and the ball getting into him. I think that'll be really key. I think it's actually interesting. You talked about the set piece stuff because I think that's something that Arsenal have actually been really good at this year. West Ham's not bad, but that's something that Arsenal are actually creating more shots from set plays than West Ham right now. And I think that's really interesting. Not to pull a Tim here, but this is something that I actually just wrote about last week. Really kind of went through all the different permutations and things that we've done with our corner kick routines, especially. And I thought that was really interesting to see how we've actually changed the way that we've gone about attacking. It's actually really interesting to see where we've gone from attacking with between 4 and 5 players, where now it's very consistently we have 6 and 7 players in the box attacking players. We've gone very exclusively to doing in-swingers. Before, especially when Pepe was taking a lot of them, he was almost the exclusive guy where we would alternate between ins and outs. But now it's, the exclusive, the in-swingers. One of the things I think is really, really cool is that a lot of the plays seem to be designed to get Gabriel, matched up on a guy one-on-one, man-to-man, where he's getting the running start. And then we'll do sort of these little picks and, have him move all around the play to actually go through and find space to go through it. So that was actually really interesting to see our improvement on this over the year. And I think it actually, paid dividends last week with Gabriel getting a really good goal from our, a really good delivery from Martinelli. So I think this will be a good chance for us to maybe pick up some marginal gains.
Yeah, well, look, Clive is at the ground. He's made himself known here in the chat at the ground, and it's buzzing here. If he really cared, he would go into the stream from his mobile device, even with the crappy Wi-Fi at the Emirates. But we will, for those of you who do the instant reaction on the Patreon side, we will be getting Clive's in-ground thoughts during the game. He's recording those and he'll be sending those. So those are always fun. He did that once before, and that was a lot of fun. I hope it's a great occasion, Clive. Absolutely. Jess, let's start to pivot a little bit to just what we're expecting in the game. I thought Scott touched on some of the issues around set pieces, which is really good. I have to admit, I think there's a lot of reasons to be critical of coaching, but one of the areas where coaching really shines through is set plays. And we've been a lot better on them. And the marginal gains from coaching show up in set plays. So I think the coaches deserve a lot of credit. Who needs to have a big game for you tonight? Who are the factors? I mean, I will admit, I still think Smith Rowe could come into this game and be a big part of it. I feel that we lose something in ball retention and ball progression, not having him drifting inside, but that leaves Martinelli to do that tigerish running and be a little bit more direct. Is Martinelli a guy who maybe breaks out here, or do you have someone else in mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think Martinelli, you could say that, but I think it's right up the spine, to be honest. I think if Lacazette goes missing, if Thomas Partey decides to have an Everton-like performance, or Gabriel can't handle Antonio, we're finished. I think it's more down that spine, because for me, I think the games that we struggle are when the senior players don't step up. It tends to be more that than the young players didn't do their job. So for me, I think Martinelli will have a good game. I believe Saka will have a good game. But if Lacazette does the Lacazette thing where he just kind of sinks back to right back, we're finished. You know, if Thomas Partey doesn't get on the ball, then Odegaard doesn't get service and we're finished, because that's the way that we get up the pitch, especially without ESR. And if Gabriel and White are not on their game, we will get smashed, you know? So I think it's right up the gut for me, really. It's those players, and in particular, Thomas Partey, because I think although he had a better game against Southampton, he will have to be levels above that to compete against Souček and Declan Rice. That's probably one of the best midfield pivots in the league. They look unstoppable at the moment, and they're not going to give him any time and space on the ball. If Moyes has been watching any of the games over the last couple of weeks, he'll say, just get on that guy, and then Xhaka will be open, and then we'll be in, you know? So it's going to be a difficult midfield game, but it's right up the gut for me.
Yeah, Clive sniping from the comments, like a coward that he is. Meet me on the battlefield, Clive. Pistols at dawn. Scott, what do you think? I mean, that Souček Rice pivot, it's funny, right? Declan Rice is one of those players that, back when we were talking about Guendouzi, not to trigger anybody, we were talking about Guendouzi and saying how you look at players at 18, midfielders in particular, who play 2,000 minutes in a game, and there aren't many, in a season, in a Premier League season, there aren't many of them. And back at that time, it was Rice and Guendouzi. That was it. And I remember thinking, like, I don't really see it with Rice, but that's a pretty sticky stat in terms of players in midfield who play that much at that age. They tend to wind up being pretty good. And sure enough, I think Declan Rice maybe was a player that was misunderstood. I think he's looking really, really good right now. That Souček and Rice pivot, I think Jess absolutely correctly identifies it as a concern. What's your take? I mean, a lot of people in the mention saying this has to be a big Thomas Partey game. This guy, Clive, who continues to snipe from the mentions, agree with Jess? Of course you do. Not going to agree with me. Our CM versus them engage. I'm not worried. Well, if you're not worried, I'm not worried. Scott, what do you think? Is that the battle? Is it not the Mikel Antonio versus our center back battle, but in fact, the double pivots, the Xhaka Partey versus Souček and Rice?
I mean, I think I do kind of come down to it is probably the midfield thing, because it's one of those. Declan Rice has gotten to the point where he's gotten able to kind of cover for Souček to be able to do the late runs. He can basically allow it. So one of the things that's really cool about West Ham, or I mean, I guess cool when they're not playing us at least, is that then they win the ball back. They really commit to attacking very quickly. So they really will attack with almost 6 guys right down the field. So they got their 4 main attackers. They will bring in a fullback on whatever side. Plus then Souček will, make his late runs. That leaves a lot of ground for Rice to be able to cover, but he has done really well at being able to do that. They are one of the top teams at doing direct or counterattacks. And that's something that they are very good at, also limiting other teams. They aren't necessarily a super high pressing team. This is much more of the classic, we are going to really not engage you until you cross the midfield line. And they look to win the ball back
like
quickly. Us. Yeah, well, except for Arsenal don't try to win the ball back very often. That's one of the things, though. They actually do a lot of defensive actions. And actually trying to be proactive in winning the ball back and, basically jumping passing lanes kind of a thing, and then looking to spring it from that So that'll be something to be really mindful of. And I think that's something where it really does go back into our midfield needs to be good at being able to find those passes. So I think that was something that Southampton early in the game was able to kind of jump some of the passing lanes. So yes, we were trying to be vertical with our passing, but I think that Southampton was good at kind of reading those passes. And that's something that I think we're going to have to be wary of in this match, because I think West Ham is obviously superior to Southampton and should be able to punish us if we do make the same mistakes that we did against Southampton early in that match. Because there was definitely chances where Southampton could have scored, except for, they are not a great team. And, we are, able to kind of handle our mistakes.
Yeah. Jess, thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I also think what Clive said is interesting too, that Bowen is actually going to be an issue for Tierney on that side. He needs to watch out for that, because, I mean, it took me a long time to believe that this West Ham team was good. Trust me, I tried to make them bad for weeks. They're not. They have really good players. And not only that, Moyes has figured out a way to get them playing at the top of their game. And so Tierney is somebody that's going to need to get out to the cross. They're going to try to cross the ball in from those wide areas, get Antonio involved in late runs from Souček and whoever else is up there. And my only thing is he doesn't tend to get out to the cross quick enough. And Bowen is a busy guy. And so I worry about that a little bit. Their front four, as although it's not something that sparkles and shines, you don't see world-class players up there. They are dangerous in their own right. So they have an advantage there, I think, with a defense that's been, if we're honest, a little bit shaky against the better teams. But where they're a little bit on the, where we have an advantage is that's not their first choice defense. None of it is. Even Sioux Fall is not their first choice anymore. Ben Johnson is. So for me, I think we need to put pressure on them and try to make their defense make mistakes. I remember that Dawson guy kicking the ball in the back of his own net last season. He's not their best center back. Zuma and Ogbonna are. So there are some gaps there, and there's some things that we can exploit. But ultimately, this is a team that never gives up. They play really hard, and I'm scared. I can't lie. I'm a little bit scared about it. So we'll see what happens. But we need to be on our game. We need to be on our game, because it's one of those where if they score early, I think it could get ugly.
Yeah, well, I mean, the funny thing is they scored early 3 times in the last game that we played each other in Scott. That was then our best game from an attacking standpoint, which I thought was kind of, I mean, I say our best game from an attacking standpoint. I say that kind of, I realize that's a strange thing to sort of say, having gone down 3-0, there's score effects, but I do think.
But, I think it was definitely at least one of our best attacking halves.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was good because they stood off of us. I think it's important to remember that we actually didn't start playing well until they decided that the game was over. So it was our best because they actually stopped playing. I know that sounds really negative, but it's true.
Pause is back.
Or am I?
Sorry. I just wanted to make the point real quick. I did not just decide to keep you out of the conversation. Pause. You had vanished from my little dashboard here. So I don't know if that was a technical issue.
Yeah, I think so. I've been here a long time, but that's
yes.
All right. I was enjoying the chat.
Yes. Well, I do want to say we're approaching 1,000 live viewers right now. And if you want to caress the like button, as you know, we don't advocate smashing like buttons. We think that your device is worth more than that. So what we say is please gently caress the like and subscribe button if you would be so kind.
Elliot, I do have a thought, because you were talking about who we should watch. I think Antonio is going to be okay. I think Gabriel is going to cover him on one side and pay close attention. I think White will get ahead of him, nip the ball away from him. Tomiyasu will give us coverage. I think he won't be the player that we're worried about unless Bowen gets away from us, because he's going to be mining that Kieran Tierney corner when Tierney goes forward. He's a busy little player. He's tricky. He's dangerous. He's the guy who will get the ball to Antonio in dangerous spots. If we can keep Bowen quiet, we're having a good game. And that's down to Xhaka and Tierney making sure that he's not a factor. That to me is the player beyond, obviously Antonio, Rice, Souček. But I think if we manage to keep Bowen from causing us a lot of trouble behind Tierney when he moves forward, we're in business.
Yeah. I mean, I got to tell you, I think the thing that's really hard, Paz, and maybe you can agree or disagree with me here, because I think this is the key. I just don't really know who we are just yet. I think right before that trip to Anfield, and maybe even with the Newcastle game, we had stumbled onto something. We kind of found who we were, but it involved Tavares going, a two-way player. It involved Lukonga giving us a little escapability in midfield. Aubameyang, if you remember him, here we can go back to this. He was a factor up front, whether you thought he was doing well or not doing well, whatever the case may be. And so, I think now we're kind of back to searching for who we are. Shaq has been reintegrated with all the benefits that brings. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't bring any, but some of the drawbacks that we know that it brings as well. And Smith Rowe, who was scoring goals, such an important part, he's out. Martinelli's in, and I think Martinelli's played well. But do you feel maybe we still just don't, even after all this time, really know enough about ourselves yet? And that we've changed again with the little lineup changes and the personnel changes. And this is I think this is a very big moment for us to learn who we are, because we've struggled in the big away games. We played well in the weaker home games. This is a home game against a good team in a position that we want to be in, and we can leapfrog them if we win. It's time to learn something about us, right? Because I still don't really feel like I know that much about us.
No, I don't have that problem. I think I know who we are right now. Our lineup is basically going to be the same lineup we had against West Ham last year. Midfield's the same. The attack will be the same, so we won't start with Aubameyang weirdly on the right. We'll have Saka on the right. We'll have Martinelli on the left, which is where we moved Aubameyang to. It'll be like the West Ham game last year. I'm not. We've got Odegaard in the mix. We got Lacazette ahead. I think we know exactly how we're going to try and play, and it'll be a lot like, if it goes well, the second half against Southampton, and if it takes a while to build, it'll look a lot like the first half against Southampton. So I'm not that conflicted anymore in terms of. It's more a question of whether we play well, but I think I know what we're trying to do. It's no longer complicated. We'll have Ramsdale at the back, so maybe we'll be a little braver playing out from the back. But apart from that, stylistically, well, I guess the other difference is last year we had Chambers bombing forward. This was the game he did the Cafu impersonation. Well, we won't be doing that so much, but we'll just get Saka in behind a little more. We'll get Tomiyasu's beginning to express himself in the final third. Maybe we'll see some of that. He's putting in some crosses. So I don't think substantially. I think if you want to know who we're going to be in this game, we're going to try and be the West Ham 3-3 game, the second half against Southampton. Odegaard buzzing around, making stuff happen, joining up with Partey, mining that right-hand side, getting diamonds going. That's it. Yep. That's our identity.
Scott, this is unfortunately sort of narrative street, but I think it is an important part of narrative street. Like, there is going to be this impossible disentangling or intertwining that you can't disentangle between how the team performs today and what will then be the reaction the players gave the manager to the Oba thing. And look, I hate it. It's narrative. It's going to be overplayed, but let's address it because I think it exists and it's going to be talked a lot about. To what extent? Oh, wait. Thank you, Amir. Paul's opposition analysis is always spot on. Sadly, yes, because his predictions have not been good lately and they've all been true. But thank you, sir. So, Scott, to what extent do you think there is this real pressure for Arteta and for the players to show that this is so dumb, right? Because it's a hard game. They could have lost it with Oba. They could have won it without but to what extent do you think there is going to be that instinct to take whatever happens today and apply it to the Aubameyang situation as the player's reaction,
Yeah, I mean, I think this is definitely going to be billed as the referendum on the decision, right? Like, there's probably no getting away from that. However things go, that's probably going to be how the narrative kind of plays going forward. I think that's unfortunate because you can't go back and, run it over and say, well, this is how it would have gone if he had played or if, things hadn't changed. So it's, either way, I think anybody's going to be able to come out with saying whatever they need to do from this match, unfortunately. But hopefully it comes away with, I don't know, people keep trying to remind me, that Arsenal are 2-0 in matches where Oba has been dropped. So maybe that'll be the case here, and that will continue. And maybe he was a giant cancer on the team, and everything's going to be rosy and awesome going forward. And this will slowly just fade away into not an issue at all. I don't know if that will necessarily be the case, but yeah, it's going to be the big narrative afterwards. And that's part of the reason that I go back to my rant earlier, but that's part of the concern that I had about this, is that this has now become the story about the team. And it's something that is going to live with us until the situation is resolved. I have no idea how long that's going to take. And it's probably going to take a lot longer than any of us would actually like.
Yep. Fair enough, Scott. I think, I think it is the simple fact that when you make disciplinary decisions that are big splashes, big disciplinary decisions. And this isn't me saying that they are wrong, by the way. I'm just saying when you make them, it is a guarantee. I mean, it's red meat for tabloids, red meat for media, right? So it's a guarantee that it's going to be discussed. And I just think it is, it is as simple as saying like, all right, we know that's going to get discussed. Let's go about and do our job and let the media talk about what they want to talk about. I don't think it impacts us on the pitch tonight. That's my opinion. Maybe we'll see something different. Maybe it motivates them. I just think these things tend to be the kind of things that narrative-wise are fun to talk about, but actually impact things less than usual. Just one player that hasn't gotten a lot of talk this live stream, and I think it's kind of a shame, and he somehow gets overlooked right now, maybe because his brilliance is just expected, is Bukayo Saka. I think he was probably our best player against Southampton. I think he is in a really good vein of form. And the only thing missing really is the finishing. There were a couple of good chances that he had that went begging. So what do you think of Saka, the form he's in right now, and maybe is the next last little piece we need from him to just find that clinical edge in front of goal? Because he's, he created the goal, obviously, for Lacazette brilliantly, hit the post twice. It feels like a really big breakthrough is coming. Yeah.
Yeah, he goes under the radar because we expect him to be good. We don't look at him as a young player anymore, and we're looking at Emile Smith-Rowe and Martinelli like, are you coming? So with Saka, it's kind of like we expect it, but he's improving. He's actually getting better, and you can see it like in front of your eyes. And before, I think there were some questions around whether he actually could play right wing. I still hear kind of some rival chat about, is he good enough to play right wing? Is he not just a left back or a left wing back? And I feel like that comes from him not being as clinical in front of goal. And that will be the last piece of the puzzle. But last season, I didn't even see him in my recollection. I don't remember him taking on as many shots. I don't think the shots that he took were even as close as the ones that he's taking now. And I think what I like about Bukayo is that he tends to make the right decision almost every single time. And for me, the best players, the ones that you watch play for City, which to me is always kind of like the benchmark, they always kind of make the right decision in the right place. Maybe the execution isn't always there, but he has that footballing IQ too that you can't buy, and you can't, if you don't have it, you just don't have it. So he's definitely a special player. And if he can just improve that final product, I think he's right up there with, the best of them. So he just kind of goes under the radar, but the last game against Southampton and even against Newcastle, you could just kind of see that it's kind of starting to click for him. He just needs to stay fit and put the ball in the back of the net. And I think we're right around the corner from that. I think Martinelli's going to have his breakout season this season. Really, it's going to be that second breakout beyond the first one that he had. But Saka's improving massively. And that's great for us, isn't it?
It is great for us. I think we have this tendency when someone is new and shiny and exciting and breaking through to maybe even overly praise them, right? To overemphasize how good they are. And then as their quality becomes more expected, maybe we undervalue them. And I think there's a little bit of that happening with Saka. Let's get into prediction time though. Paul, I'll get the negatives out of the way first by starting with you. Your prediction for the game, both in terms of score and maybe in terms of where you see the key battles being won or lost. And get your predictions in the comments. We're going to throw them up there. Paul, what do you think?
I think I'm going to go with the 2-1.
That's better. Much better.
Yeah. I'm going to go with the 2-1 to us.
2-1 to us. You heard it. He has been Nostradamus. So there you go.
I'm feeling it today. I think it's going to be a tough game. I think it's going to be pretty even, but I just get a sense we're going to squeak this one. I think, as I said, I think that Bowen battle is a big one. I think we'll handle, if Antonio comes onto our right-hand side, we'll handle him. I think we'll handle him on the left with Gabrielle. The question is, how much mischief can Bowen manufacture? And as long as we defend set pieces, which is a big if, that could go either way. I think 2-1 to us feels about right. So that's where I'm at.
Okay. Well, let's get some more feedback in here. Scott, prediction time. What do you got?
I'm going to say 0-0. I feel like this is one where both coaches are going to kind of line up not to lose. So I feel like it's going to be kind of cagey. I think that especially David Moyes with his depleted center backs is going to be a little bit more conservative, maybe not quite as gung-ho with maybe some of the counters. At least that's kind of what I hope. I think Arsenal will probably do something similar. I think we've been on a bit of a hot finishing run, and with the number of shots that they've been able to generate. So I think maybe that kind of comes back a little bit here. I think, we're not going to see any goals. I think it's going to be kind of boring, but I think a point against West Ham, even though it's at home, is still probably a fine-ish result.
So basically, this is the thing. Scott came on here, gave you his takes on the Oba situation, was like, checked his Twitter. He hadn't lost a bunch of followers. He wasn't being abused. He's like, I got to go even hotter. How about 0-0 is my prediction in boring football? Scott, I will level you. Us scoring 0 is always in the range of outcomes, right?
Yeah.
In terms of just the number of shots we get, the number of chances we get. I can't see a 0-0 here. I have a really hard time seeing that, just because I think lately we've been, especially when we're at home, like, the funny thing is our defense is getting a little bit worse as we try to make this transition to a bit of a more attacking team. And I just think at home, trying to push a little further up the pitch, at a minimum, we're going to get ourselves exposed, but we tend to do okay in terms of trying to attack when that's happened. I think there'll be goals in this. I could see a 2-2. I could see a 2-1 either way, really knife edge kind of thing. The interesting thing, I think we can all agree, if Arsenal get the first goal, there's going to be so much interest in how we play from there, right? Because that's been the big talking point, is Arsenal going into a shell when it's an Arsenal lead. Can I just bring up one last topic before we get out of here, guys?
I mean, you're the host, so you can do that, right?
I didn't get to do my prediction.
Right. Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. Sorry, I was going to get to your prediction. I wanted to throw one thing in, but yeah, do your prediction, then we'll throw in the one last topic.
2-2.
2-2.
You kind of stole my thunder there. But yeah, I think 2-2. And I'm really interested to see how the team performs at home against a team that's above us, in and around us, in that top 4 race. I need to see something different than what I saw against Man United. I need to see something different, at least from a performance standpoint. I think it's going to be a lot closer than some people think. I think they're better than some people are willing to admit. But there's holes there on both sides. So I would say 2-2, and I'm really interested to see what we do here, because that narrative, I think, needs to change at some point during this season, that not only can we really compete against the teams that are in and around us, but when there's pressure on us, we can deliver. So it's here, and I need it to be today.
Fair enough. So then I guess we'll bring in one more topic real quick. Let's do this really, really quick before we get out of here. Paul, the COVID thing is a weird situation right now. It's crazy to think that we're still in the midst of this, but there are games being canceled. It feels very haphazard. The Premier League has clearly not put any kind of protocol in place. Manchester United has like the sniffles and they don't have to play. There's an outbreak at Leicester and they do. It doesn't feel very coherent. But the fear for me, while we're all caught up in the tribalist version of, are they being fair to my team and unfair to my team and fair to your team? There is also the fear that we wind up with a stoppage or empty grounds again. So I really hope we don't go there. Do you think the Premier League has fucked this, though, just in terms of, pardon my language, screwed this in terms of just not seeming to be prepared to have a protocol in place? I look at leagues like the NFL, and the NFL gets so many things wrong, and they're literally like villains at times. But like they have a very clear COVID policy. Anyone can read what it is. It's very easy to follow and know what it is. Like leagues that are well run just have these policies, and the fact that there isn't one in the Premier League is just wild.
Well, I guess like US leagues are different, right? They're kind of private clubs that truly set their own rules. And English football sees itself as part of the culture and therefore reflective of the culture. And therefore, right now, given the politics of COVID, no matter where you're at, much less tendency to be prescriptive that anybody has to do anything. And I think it's just, it's culturally a whole different thing. In America, you make your own sport, you make your own rules. Clubs must join your overall club and abide by the club rules. And it's legal, it's financial, there's big money. And like the beauty of football in Europe, in England, is it's this kind of chaotic mess, which is partly why we love it. It's like, it doesn't really make sense, but the best things are kind of organic and evolve. And like, this isn't a top-down design sport and structure and whatever. It's evolved from the bottom up. It's organic, it's messy, it's kind of chaotic.
I think these are great points, Paul. I still think like the Premier League can at a minimum say to the clubs, like, here are the circumstances by which you'll be entitled to a postponement, and here are the ones where you won't. And
I think there is something like that, though. Is there not?
Is there? Okay.
Like, because I think when it
sure doesn't feel like it based on their decision making for us versus Spurs versus Leicester versus United.
I thought it's been very case by case, right? I think that's kind of what they've been saying.
And
Jess?
if you're training, like the reason why Manchester United got their game postponed was because they had to shut down the training ground, and that was looked at as a big enough reason, but they barely got it. So there is something there, but I don't think it applied to us. Like, I think it was just too early in the season. They didn't want that first game of the season to be COVID narrative, and so now they've put in something. It doesn't feel fair, but there's something there. But I think your training ground has to be shut down basically for at least a day.
Gotcha. Well, look, we should get out of here so people can get ready to watch the game. People, I think we all agree we love football, and we just want the football to carry on. We want football to carry on with grounds full of fans, and so hopefully that will continue to occur. And I just, I think we're keeping our fingers crossed, because also you have a Winter World Cup next season, so like the schedule is clustered. We can't really afford a stoppage, and it would figure, Scott, right, that like this season we somehow get to a point where we're like sneaking in the back door to top 4 somehow, some way, and then they're like, season called off, voided, it doesn't count. We'll see you next season. Yeah.
That would be that'd be very Arsenal-y, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get out of here. Scott's on Twitter. _that_crap. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you for letting me have my time to rant.
Yeah. Hey, it's your mentions, buddy. Paul's on Twitter. Pause my pants. Thanks, Pause.
Woohoo! Good news. There's too much money involved in football for them to cancel it. So.
Oh, thank God! We knew we could trust greed to save us. Jess, I obviously we're gonna have more stuff with you. We're gonna do a lot for transfer season and scouting pods and things like that with you on the YouTube channel. So hopefully people will join us for that. You looking forward to this game though? You think it could be this is fun. This is a big game at home that we can win. Like it kind of ticks a lot of boxes of things that like I'm pretty excited for it.
Yeah, for sure. I am excited about the game. I'm a little bit more optimistic than I have been in the past. Before I get out of here, I do just want to let everybody know that Arsenal women do play at the exact same time as Arsenal men right now. You can rewatch their game, I guess, against Hoffenheim in the Champions League on YouTube. So after our game, after you've capitulated or were, boozed up or whatever, take a look at that. It's on YouTube and it's free. Just support the Arsenal women because they're doing big things over there. But thank you so much, Elliot. I am excited about the game, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, you as well. Thanks so much, Jess. Okay, my name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. We love you. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We'll let you get out of here and enjoy the game. We'll be back with an instant reaction pod on the Patreon side of things, and we have our first ever Academy review coming for patrons this week with George Bird, who is an absolute expert. Clive will be on it as well. And then we'll have our main pod tomorrow anyway. So lots of good stuff to come and more live streams as well. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching me spill coffee all over my MacBook. That was a fun moment. I hope you enjoyed it too. Come on, Arsenal. Big game. Back in the top 4. Here we go. We love you. We will talk to you after Arsenal 10, West Ham 0.